Welcome to Speakeasy Spirits. I'm just here enjoying one of my original cocktails. This is the Prescription, a Tiki style cocktail inspired by the painkiller. And it is fantastic. Today we're going to do something a little different. I want to walk you through starting your own home bar. What do I think some of the essential bottles you need are? What are the bar tools you need? How do you get started bartending at home? There's tons of YouTube videos out there trying to tell you what the perfect 5-bottle or 10-bottle bar is, but there is no perfect bar except the one that's perfect for you. So I think the first question you need to ask yourself when you're setting up a home bar is, what kind of drinks do you want to make? When you're starting out, you may only have a few bottles, but if you're into tiki drinks, maybe more of those bottles should be rum. If you're into classic Prohibition era drinks, maybe you need a couple of different gins. It really depends on what your personal tastes are. If you're into tiki, there's a couple of basics I think you need to have. You're probably going to want a Jamaican rum. Now you can't go wrong with Smith & Cross. It's got that funk that Jamaican rums are known for, and it's also Navy strength, so it's 57% alcohol. This is going to work well in anything where you need an aged rum or a Jamaican rum. It's good in a Mai Tai, a Pina Colada, wherever you want to add some character to a drink, go with a Jamaican rum. The next thing you're going to need is a light or white rum. A lot of people think of Bacardi here, but there's really a lot of options out on the market. This one is from St. Augustine's Distillery in St. Augustine, Florida. It's aged 8 months on their bourbon barrels. It has a little bit of color to it, but it's still a white rum. This is going to go good in your daiquiris. It's going to work in a Mai Tai. There's a lot of options when it comes to white rums. I like something that's aged 8 months to 3 years. A lot of times they'll charcoal filter an aged rum to turn it back into a crystal clear white rum, but it still has that mellowness that age brings. If you're doing tiki cocktails, another must-have would be an orange curacao. Pierre Fernand's dry curacao is a great option. This will go good in tiki drinks like a Mai Tai, but also work well in classic cocktails like a Corpse Reviver. You'll get a lot of use out of a good orange curacao. You could even use it to replace triple sec in something like a margarita, and you'll get a more rounded, complex flavor than a triple sec would give you. I'd avoid any of the bottom shelf curacaos, but you also don't need to go top shelf. For around $20 to $25, you can get a pretty decent curacao. And last, you're going to want to add some other flavors. So I would go with either a falernum or an allspice dram. These are both going to add a lot of spices to your drink. Falernum has a lot of clove, cinnamon, nutmeg, various baking spices. Well, an allspice dram is pretty much going to be strong nutmeg flavor. They're both frequently used in tiki drinks, so if you're just starting out on a tiki bar, you're going to want at least one of these. I've only picked out 4 essential bottles to start your tiki bar. The 5th one is really going to be up to you. You could get a bottle of London Dry Gin. That's going to be used in a lot of tiki cocktails like the Saturn or the Scorpion Bowl. But if you're just starting out, my recommendation is to get the 4 bottles and save your money for the syrups. You're going to want cinnamon syrup, orgeat, maybe a honey syrup. You're going to need a few other ingredients outside of the spirits to really round out your tiki experience. Now, if you're passionate about classic Prohibition era cocktails, gin is what you're going to want to focus on. One of my favorite things to use in a classic cocktail is a barrel-rested gin. This is the Chemist barrel-rested gin from North Carolina. But there's a lot of different brands that are now doing barrel-rested gins. A barrel-rested gin adds a little more complexity and depth to the flavors while still keeping those traditional gin notes. Next, you're probably going to want to consider a London Dry or a contemporary gin. London Dry gin you don't have to spend a lot of money on. You can pick up Beefeater or a Bombay Sapphire for a pretty good price most of the time. Now, contemporary style gin would be something like Aviation Gin, or one of my personal favorites is McQueen and the Violet Fog. This has all the juniper notes that gin is known for, along with a lot of other botanicals. I think McQueen and the Violet Fog is a little sweeter than a lot of other gins, but not so much so that you need to rebalance your cocktails. It works well in anything classic or modern. If you want to focus on old school classic cocktails, you're probably going to want a bitter red Italian liqueur. Now that can be Campari, but one of my favorites is apparel. This is on the sweeter side, where Campari is considered a lot more bitter, but don't let that fool you. Apparel is plenty bitter enough for me. You're going to find bitter red Italian liqueurs in your Negronis. It's also a great accent to a lot of classic cocktails. It pairs well with a variety of spirits, anything from gin to whiskeys. You're probably going to want some kind of aromatized wine. Now, a lot of recipes call for Lillet, but I prefer Coca Americano. This is going to add some bitterness and herbal notes, but not too much. This is used in a lot of classic cocktails like a Corpse Survivor No. 2, and I think it's good to always have a bottle on hand. Now, because it is an aromatized wine, it's similar to a vermouth. So you could use this in recipes that call for a vermouth, like a Manhattan. I'd also keep it chilled, because once you open it, being a wine and lower ABV, there is a chance that over the course of 6 months, the flavors might start to change. One thing I'd suggest if you're going to buy an aromatized wine, like a vermouth or Coca Americano or Lillet, is to buy the smallest bottle you can find. That way, you're not going to have it go bad in your fridge and feel bad about the money you spent on it. When I'm making a classic cocktail, the fifth ingredient I find myself picking up the most often is a fruit brandy. There's lots of options out there. Go with whatever fruits you like the most. I happen to personally like apricot or cherry herring. They're both going to add some sweetness and the fruit notes you might be looking for. A lot of times I will swap out an orange liqueur for one of these and make a totally different cocktail that still turns out great. If your thing is margaritas, you're probably going to focus heavy on tequilas. For that, I suggest 3 bottles of tequila. You're going to want a white tequila. Now, there's lots of different brands out there. I happen to like Espolón. You're also going to want a Reposado or Añejo tequila. Now, Reposado is aged the most, where an Añejo is somewhere in the middle between the white and the Reposado. The more age tequila has, the more it's going to mellow out that sharp bite that's associated with white tequilas. So depending on the drink you want to make, you may want sharp lime flavors and that bite of a white tequila, or you may want to round it out. I would use an Añejo or Reposado with some grapefruit and make a good Paloma. And the third bottle you're going to want is a Mezcal. There's a wide range of smokiness in Mezcals, from very light to very heavy. I personally like something right in the middle. That way I can add just a little to a margarita to add some character to it, or I can make the whole thing out of the Mezcal and get a really strong smoky note and make something really interesting. In addition to your tequila, you're probably also going to need an orange liqueur. I personally use Curaçaos in my margaritas, but triple sec is normally the go-to. There's lots of options out there for orange liqueurs. You don't have to spend a ton of money to get a good one. If you want your home bar to focus on margaritas, those 4 bottles are probably all you need. The 5th bottle is going to be up to you. If you want to make some flavored margaritas, I'd recommend your 5th bottle be a fruit liqueur. Maybe something like this mango chinola, or maybe Uzu Curaçao. Whatever your favorite fruit margarita is, there's going to be a liqueur for it. Regardless of what kind of home bar you're putting together, you're going to need a few staple items. One of those is going to be syrups, whether it's simple syrup, orgeat, or grenadine, all of which are easy enough to make at home. If you're buying bottles, you want to look for a couple of things. One would be get a glass bottle. In my experience, that's a pretty good sign that what's inside the bottle is going to be quality, especially when it comes to grenadine. Those plastic bottles of neon red syrup, skip them. From what I've seen, the syrups in the glass bottles consistently have been better than the plastic bottles sitting next to them on the store shelves. Another thing that any home bar needs is some bitters. Now, you can't go wrong with Angostura. Across the board, whether it's an old-fashioned or tiki cocktails, Angostura is going to be a good fit. But if you're putting together your first home bar, what you may want to try is an assortment of bitters. For about the same price as getting 1 or 2 bottles of bitters, you can get 5 of these small bottles, and each one is going to make dozens of drinks. This way you can try out a few different things, and the ones that you like, you can go back and buy the larger bottle of. I hope that helps you start your home bar. If you liked the video, be sure to like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.